Hello everyone, how are you? What's been happening? Guess what, guys? You have to realize that when you are talking to people, have pauses in your communication. Make sure you're thinking about what to say to people, but also making sure that you're not thinking what to say, you are just, you know what to say, okay? Like, you have to stay in a position where you know yourself. You know what you're going to do. You know what you're going to say. You know where you're going to go. But you have to have a plan. You have to plan your life accordingly. So the thing is, every day in your life, you have to be straightforward with who you are. You have to talk structurally. You have to make sure every day of your life is a positive one. So when you're doing things to talk to people, you're looking inside. But you're not thinking. You're just being. You're being yourself. You're making programs. You're building upon your potential. And now people around you are going to try to take you down. They're going to use scare tactics on you. If you're on medication, then they're going to try to get the doctor involved to up your medication, to scare you. Or they might say that they're going to call the police to scare you, to control you, to use scare tactics on you. Do you understand? So these people are manipulators, okay? They try to scare you for your life, but you have to focus on you. You have to focus on your life. You must not give in to someone else, okay? You must understand, you give your heart, but only to the right people. You understand? Not everyone deserves your time. Not everyone deserves you around them. And you have to know who your true friends are. So when you're doing things around life, you're looking to every single day make a better life for yourself. And now in 2025, the dream life is no longer owning a home. You understand? The dream life now in 2025 is to build a real estate empire of knowledge online. Basically, all your wisdom, everything you came here for to do. You have to understand, you're making knowledge online, you're posting online every day, and you're building this real estate of knowledge about you online. You're impacting the world through your voice. And with every word that you speak, you have to make sense of everything you do. So, for example, back in my life before, I used to do air writing while talking to you. I used to be very messy in my own mind, okay? I used to be stimulating my mind with my hand, trying to basically stimulate words to talk to people. And the thing is that I was becoming more isolated in my life because of the reason that I was doing Code Zero, which is the code of Danny Milivojevic, although I've overcome this code, okay? I no longer use it, okay? And the reason for this is because I get to a stage in my life where I'm doing Code Zero, for example, and suddenly it's like I'm so self-absorbed, I'm so much focusing on my path and where I'm going, and I'm so much so in my own world that I don't focus on anything else. You understand? But the thing is that there is a better way to do it. There is a healthier way to do it. And that's something that requires no thinking at all. And now with my hand and my fingers and stuff like that, I used to just write and write and write. And I used to do code zero all the time in my daily life. I used to every single day wake up, start doing code zero, and it takes so much of my energy to do it, although it's creativity, but I learned from it and it built my confidence in some kind of way. But the thing is that I was so focused on my word I, okay, and it's good to be focused on your word I, but I found myself very isolated and not thinking about other people and not thinking about where I want to go with my life. I was thinking where I want to go with my life, but I was thinking so much so on what other people. I was thinking about them, for example. And when I was thinking about them with my code zero, I was saying things about them inside of myself. Things about how unfair they're treating me. Things about how they don't message me. Things about how they treat me in life. And I always felt like a victim, because this is what I was talking about inside of myself. And this was creating some kind of resentment inside of me. This was creating disconnection inside of me. Do you understand? I was getting more disconnected from the world around me, and I was becoming more isolated, for example. And this is all due to code zero. You understand? And now, has code zero helped me? Well, in some ways, yes. Code zero has helped me to make quotes. It's helped me to, for example, build my confidence in some kind of way and become a better person in some kind of way. Although, I did plan my life with code zero. But I found out recently I don't need code zero to plan my life. I can plan my life on my own without thinking. So, when you're planning your life, do not think to plan your life. Just plan your life. The thing is, do not think at all. Don't think about anything. That's the key to clarity. That's the key to happiness. You understand? You want to be happy? Stop your thinking. Do not even think. Okay? And now, of course, we may find ourselves talking to ourselves, for example, or talking to other people and stuff like that. Although you have to realize that when you're thinking, you must not be thinking. Okay? You must never think. Never think of anything. Okay? What you do is you just do something about it. Okay? And you have to realize, don't think about anything around you. Okay? This is how you be fully present with yourself. This is how you become more connected. This is how you become a better person and individual who's connected to the world around you, who's more confident and more vibrant. So don't think of what to say. And make sure that you're every day not thinking. Okay? Because the thing is that there's a moment of silence before you talk. Okay? And in that silence is pure clarity, pure happiness. But as soon as you override the silence with thoughts, your happiness decreases. Okay? And now I found myself doing code zero in my day almost 24/7. Okay? But you have to realize that I was doing it so much, okay, that I'd be in my own world, disconnected from life, because of how Code Zero in terms of is, because of the things that I want to say. For example, I love but I want to say that Code Zero was helping me, but it was also disconnecting me, okay? It was disconnecting me from the world around me, okay? But although I was connected to myself, okay? I'm still connected to myself, but I don't need Code Zero to connect to myself. And now, the thing is that when I was doing Code Zero, I would basically be thinking just about myself. And then I would think about other people. And then I would think about all the things they're doing to me. Then I would think about how they're treating me. And I would get so upset. I would get so upset. Do you understand? Because of the way I was talking to myself. And now, Code Zero is wisdom, okay? But too much of anything is not good for you. And the way I was doing Code Zero was, I was doing it a lot. I was doing Code Zero a lot. I love I. But I would find myself more isolated and more disconnected from the world around me. Not in depression. I'm not in depression. Although, you have to realize, when I was doing Code Zero, I wasn't in depression, okay? I just felt very disconnected from the world around me. I was connected to myself, and I'm still connected to myself, although I was not connected to the world around me. Do you understand? Even though there were a little bit of times where I was connecting with the world around me. But these days now, I'm more focused. I'm more focused about my direction, about my confidence, about my life coaching, about who I am and how I do things. I've learned a key skill now. Never do Code Zero. Never do it. You understand? And now, the reason for this is, for example, you can get my book, Code Zero, the Code of Danny Milivojevic on amazon.com.au, just to check it out and just to see how it is. It's just $1.51, okay? But you have to realize that this is the things that was in my mind, okay? And when you look at Code Zero, you will not understand the sequence of anything. You will not understand what I'm talking about, okay? Although I understand it, I understand what I'm talking about, but you wouldn't. And this is what they call disorganized thinking, and this is what they call schizophrenia. And now, how does a person heal from schizophrenia in terms of disorganized thoughts? Well, a person has to stop doing that entity that they're doing. So Code Zero for me was an entity, okay, which made it feel like a superpower, okay, which can be related to delusions. You understand? So as soon as I stopped doing that entity, which is Code Zero, I suddenly stopped my disorganized thinking. You understand? And also, I was saying before that Code Zero is not disorganized. And now, in a way, it's not disorganized. But to you, it is. Okay? And now, to be someone who doesn't think disorganized, other people have to understand you. You have to talk structurally. You have to be able to send your message across and do a lot of techniques with people, not jumping from one thought to another. You understand? Because that's what I was doing with my Code Zero. You understand? I was doing Code Zero, And I was jumping from thought to thought to thought to thought. You understand? But now, try to talk about a topic. Try to talk about a topic for hours and hours. Okay? And just stay on topic. Not jump from thought to thought. You understand? And now, what I mean is that you have to talk, okay? But you have to talk about one topic and keep it focused on one topic. You understand? Don't jump from one topic to another straight away. You understand? What you do is you talk about the topic, make people understand the topic, and then you can jump to the next one. But I was jumping from topic to topic, okay, with code zero, and other people were not understanding what I'm talking about. Do you understand? But you have to realize that the thing is, you have to realize this is what would have happened in my seminars. But now I practice life coaching without code zero. I do my audio programs without code zero. I do my video programs without code zero. I do my live without code zero. That means I no longer air write, okay? I no longer air write. I no longer write in my laptop code zero. I no longer use my boogie board, which is my e-writer, to write code zero. And I no longer journal in my phone using code zero. You understand? And I no longer talk code zero in my video programs, books, anywhere in my life. Why? Because of how I felt in that time of doing code zero. How disconnected I felt. Okay? How disconnected and isolated I felt doing code zero. That code zero was leading me down a path where I could have committed suicide. I could have committed suicide. But in order to heal, okay, from schizophrenia, a person has to not hear voices, not feel delusions, and not have disorganized thoughts, okay? So a person who's not a schizophrenic doesn't have delusions, doesn't have hallucinations, and doesn't have disorganized thinking. And now I was self-medicated. Well, not self-medicated. I was medicated. Okay, I am still medicated. Okay, but for a good deal of my time, okay, for a good deal of my time, about a few years, I was doing code zero for a few years. From age 30 to 33, I was just doing code zero, okay, or something like that. And now in my day, I was so much so thinking that I had no time to do anything else but thinking. I had nothing else to do but to think in my day. And this is how I would entertain myself. This is how I would get through my days. This is how I would plan and strategize my days. I would come back home, just think, all night, thinking. You understand? And this created a lot of disconnection. This created a lot of isolation. You understand? And let's say if I kept up doing code zero over time, I'd feel more disconnected. Okay? I'd start feeling more disconnected and more isolated, okay? And suddenly, this drove me to drink alcohol. This drove me to smoke cigarettes. This drove me to smoke vapes. This drove me to drink caffeine. This drove me back into drug patterns, okay? And now I didn't go back to illegal drugs or anything, but so much so that Code Zero helped me get off these substances. Although, the more I thought, the more I was thinking, the more I was feeling like a victim, okay? I was feeling like a victim because I was thinking so much. Because of how the world's treating me, they're treating me and stuff like that, okay? And because I was always talking about them inside of me, I was talking about those people of the past, those people in terms of how they talk to me, those people how they treat me. I was talking about how those people treat me. I love I. But you have to realize that this created a sense of misery, okay, resentment inside of me toward people. And when I felt this resentment toward people, because I was always talking about them inside of myself, like gossiping about them to myself, inside of me, inside of myself, in silence, okay? Because I would air rights in silence, okay? And I'd be making this whole freaking resentment statement inside of me, okay, because of Code Zero. And because of this Code Zero, I was leading myself down isolation. I was leading myself down toward isolation and disconnection from the world around me while on medication for schizophrenia. And I'm still medicated for schizophrenia. Although I'm healed from schizophrenia now. I no longer experience delusions. I no longer experience disorganized thinking. I no longer experience hallucinations. So, with schizophrenia, coming from a person that was diagnosed as a schizophrenic and also has studied schizophrenia in my life, and you have to realize that because I'm someone now that can speak for people who are also on that path of schizophrenia, I will tell you now that Code Zero for me personally was something that is disorganized thinking. Okay, it's disorganized thinking because other people will not understand it. You may understand it, but other people don't. So anything that's disorganized thinking is something that other people will not understand. Okay? So then Code Zero for me became this superpower. And I was using air writing with it, okay? And I was always coming back to the I in my communication. And this was cutting me off. Although keeping me intact with my word I. Almost like killing me, but I'm hanging on by the word I. Yeah, I'm hanging on by the word I, but slowly killing me. But I'm still hanging on by the thread. I'm still hanging on by the word I. You understand? And you have to realize that. Why is this? Because I was thinking so much. I was thinking, and I can finally say I was thinking because I'm no longer thinking. You want to end disorganized thinking in your life? Stop thinking. That's the best way to cure schizophrenia, is stop thinking. You understand? That's what I've learned in my personal experience. But then you ask the question, how do you stop thinking? How does one person stop thinking? And the key is, don't think before you say. You understand? Don't think before you say. Say before you think. Do you understand me? So you have to realize all these words that I'm talking to you now, I didn't have to think about it. You understand? I didn't have to think about what's coming out of my mouth. I just say it. And that's me not thinking. You understand? Because I'm just speaking, but I'm not thinking to speak. You understand? And now, you have to realize thinking goes in the realm of, like, when you, like, I want to say, when you're speaking with people, you're not thinking, okay? You're not thinking when you're speaking to people. But when you're thinking, you're not speaking to people. You understand? So when I'm speaking to you now, I'm not thinking to speak to you. But when I don't speak to you, I may be thinking. And when I may be thinking, I'm not connecting with you. And when I'm not connecting with you, I'm more isolated and I'm hanging on by a thread. You understand? So you have to realize the Buddha said, have no mind. Okay? And this is what Buddhism teaches. Have no mind. So never think. Never think about anything. Don't think about the stars. Don't think about people. Don't think about anything in the world. Don't even think about God. Don't even think about God. Don't think about Jesus Christ. Don't think about the TV. Don't think about anything. Because thinking creates delusions. Okay? Thinking creates disorganized thinking. Thinking creates hallucinations. Do you understand? Thinking creates hallucinations. Thinking creates schizophrenia. You understand me? And now, those people who never think do not have schizophrenia. Okay? People who never think are free. Okay? You want to overcome the mind, you stop thinking. You want to master your mind, you stop thinking. It doesn't take thinking to master your mind. You understand? What it takes to overcome your mind, not overcome your mind, what it takes to master your mind is by not thinking. You understand? So code zero for me was something that was making me hang on by a thread. And life would go by, and I'd be becoming more isolated and more disconnected from the world around me. Why? Because I was thinking. And thinking creates disconnection. Whenever you think, you're becoming more disconnected. Okay? And this is the problem with society. Too many people are thinking. You know? People around you are thinking. Okay? And the key to their happiness is not to think. But they keep thinking because of what they perceive as something that is interesting to them, that they think they have a superpower. You understand? They think they have a superpower. They think that because they're thinking that somehow they're going to plan their life, they're going to make the best kind of life or whatever it is. And it's that perceived notion of them thinking about their thinking that creates them to go toward drugs, that creates them to go toward alcohol, cigarettes, caffeine, and also that creates mental illness. And this also creates depression, this creates anxiety, this creates mental illness such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Do you understand me? Why? All because they're thinking. You want to end bipolar? You want to end schizophrenia? You want to end anxiety? You want to end depression? Stop thinking. It's just that simple. And many people today, like a lot of people today, are thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. And the Buddha said, have no mind, which means never think. And this is how you overcome anxiety, depression, bipolar, and schizophrenia. You understand? And you don't end schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, anxiety, and stuff like that with medication. Medication doesn't end mental illness. You understand? They may be giving you medication for your mental illness, but it's not ending your mental illness. You understand? The only person that has power to end your mental illness is you. You've got the cure inside of you. You understand? Nothing outside you can end your mental illness. You understand? So what medication can do for schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, and bipolar, it can treat it. Okay, it can treat it, yeah? But it won't end it. How do you end it? You stop thinking. You have to stop thinking. Okay? So you have to realize this is why Code Zero for me was a thing that I used. Okay, I put it into 4 books, okay? I put Code Zero into 4 books. Okay? And you can go down that list and you can read it and all that. And you will not understand the sequence I'm saying. You will not understand the sequence that I'm saying. But I understand it. Do you understand? I understand it, but you won't. You understand? And now, it's like a code, okay? Which is just coming back to the word I. Coming back to the word I. Coming back to the word I. That's Code Zero. But you have to realize, when you read Code Zero, you will not be able to understand what I'm talking about. You understand? And then I thought I had this amazing superpower. I thought I had a superpower in Code Zero. That no one else in the world is doing Code Zero but me. And this is why I'm going to do it for life. That's what I said to myself. I said to myself that I'm going to do Code Zero for life because I found my superpower. What was I experiencing? I was experiencing delusions. You understand? Because when you believe you have a superpower of some kind, something supernatural, it's a delusion. Okay? And Code Zero was part of that delusion. It was like an entity. It was like wisdom that was coming back and basically, how would I say it? It was like the more I'd done Code Zero, the more I felt trapped. The more I felt trapped. And what is Code Zero? It's just thinking. It's thinking ability. Okay? It's a thinking ability. But what we need in life is no thinking abilities. We don't want thinking abilities. Okay? We don't want to think. Okay? But I was telling myself, I have to think to get through life. I was punishing myself to think. I was punishing myself and suffering because I was thinking. And I said to myself, I'm going to do code zero for life, which means I'm going to think for life. You understand? But the key is never think. You want to end your suffering? You stop thinking. You stop thinking. That's how you end depression. That's how you end schizophrenia. That's how you end anxiety. And that's how you end bipolar disorder. That's how you get yourself into better habits, by stopping thinking. Okay? When people think a lot, when they think, they get into bad habits. Okay? Why? Because thinking stresses a person out negatively. Okay? Thinking is like putting 50 billion houses on your head. Okay? It's very heavy. Thinking is very heavy to do in life. Okay? It's very heavy to do. And now, while I'm speaking to you now, I'm not thinking. Okay? But let's say I was thinking. Okay? Then I mean, let's say I was thinking while talking to you. You have to realize I don't think while I talk to you. Okay? I don't think while I talk to you. But I want to say, if I was thinking, if I was thinking right now, I wouldn't be talking to you. Do you understand? I wouldn't be talking to you if I was thinking. Do you understand me? But because I am talking to you, I'm not thinking. Just understand that. Okay? Why do you think the world is the way it is? Because people are thinking. Okay? People are thinking. Do you understand? And because they're thinking, that's why they're not talking to you. They're not talking to you, they're not connecting with you because they're thinking. But if they were not thinking, they'd be connecting with you. You understand? Why do you think many people on social media are not messaging me right now? Because they're thinking. They're thinking. Because if they weren't thinking, they'd be connecting with me. That's the truth. And now, guess what? No one knows the truth, okay? We just have awareness, okay? We got awareness, but no one knows the exact truth. But this is something I want to say. Code Zero was like this superpower. It was like this thinking ability. It was like an amazing superpower. But it's not a superpower, okay? It's just a thinking ability, okay? And now, but listen to me. Any kind of thinking ability is like a superpower, okay? It's like a superpower, you understand? And people who think they have some kind of superpower because they can think. And the way they perceive their own thinking, okay, can determine their suffering or their happiness. By this said, I can say that if they self-realize and self-actualize themselves about what do they believe about thinking, what do they believe about themselves thinking, okay, what goes through their mind while they're thinking, and those thoughts behind those thoughts and behind those thoughts and behind those thoughts of why they're thinking. So let's say a person has 10 layers, okay? Okay, the first layer, whatever, second layer, whatever, okay? You have to realize, by the time you get to the 10th layer, you would have gone down deep into their subconscious mind to find out what do they really believe about their thinking. Do you understand? And what's behind that thinking? It's ego. It's how they think about themselves. Okay? So when you dig very deep into their mind of why they think, okay, you'll find an ego. You'll find ego in the subconscious mind. You'll find ego. And what's the ego? The ego is basically the sum up of everything they've ever thought about in their life. That creates a system in their brain, okay, that makes their ego. Okay? And how is this ego formed? It's formed through thinking. From a little baby until whatever age they are now. You understand? Some people went through their whole life thinking. Okay? And the more a person thinks, the greater their ego. You understand? So you have to understand that in order to shed the ego, okay, a person must never think again. Never think again. Okay? This is what sheds the ego. Eventually, you become someone who has no ego anymore. You become a person who has no ego because you're never thinking ever again. You're never thinking, okay? You're never thinking again, and that means, for example, that you're going to start connecting with people. You're going to start feeling less isolated. You're going to start having more love in your life, having more happiness, having more success in your life, having more health in your life because you're not thinking. Okay? Why do you think a person's obese? Because they think about food. Why do you think a person is a drug addict? Because they think about drugs. Okay? Why do you think a person's rich? Why do you think a person's rich actually? Yeah? A person who's rich is not rich by money, okay? A person who's rich, really, is a person who never thinks. A person who never thinks in life is the richest man in the world or the richest woman, okay? That's the best way to get to riches. Never think again, okay? Remember that. But why do you think a person has a lot of money? Okay? Why do you think that? Okay? I don't want you to think. Don't think at all. But just listen, okay? Because when you're thinking, you're not listening. When you're thinking, you're not listening. So don't think and you will listen. And now you have to understand, a person who has a lot of money, okay, thinks about a lot of money, okay? But you have to realize, why does a person have a lot of money? Because they think about money, okay? Why does a person have a beautiful woman? Because they think about a beautiful woman, okay? You have to understand, whatever people have in life, they thought about it, okay? They thought about it. And to think about it, to have a thought about it is to think. And to think is to create an ego about it. Do you understand? So all I'm saying is shed your ego. Shed the ego. And the way to do this is to have no thinking. Never think. Never think about anything. You understand? Never think about anything. In your daily life, when you're sitting with yourself in a room, whatever it is, just observe. Just observe the surroundings. Observe your thoughts. Observe the things that are going on, but do not force your thinking. Don't force thinking like I did. I used code zero forcibly. forcing myself 24/7 to think. I was creating myself hard labor. I had no time to connect with anyone around me because I was thinking so much. And because I had no time to connect to anyone around me, guess what? I felt very disconnected. I felt very isolated. You understand me? So you have to understand that that's why I let go of writing. I didn't let go of writing, okay? I didn't let go of writing. I now write, but I no longer think about what I write. Okay? I used to use a pen, okay? I used to use a pen with code 0, and I used to think to write one quote. Okay? I used to think maybe 20 minutes to write one quote. Okay? That's why I created 73,000 quotes. Because of my thinking ability. Although, guess what? I created an ego about this. Okay? And you have to realize that now I no longer create ego in my life. Because I never think again. I just write quotes, but I never think about them anymore. I may write quotes, but I never think about what I'm writing. You know what I'm saying? I have no need to think about what I'm writing. I have no need to think about what I say. I have no need to think about anything that I do anymore. I have no need to think about writing. I have no need to think about anything. I have no need to think about anything in my life anymore. You know what I'm saying? And this is called letting go. This is called letting go. This is called moving into growth. This is called moving into spirituality. This is called moving into Jesus Christ. This is called moving into the truth. This is called moving into spirituality. This is you transcending your ego. This is you becoming your higher self. This is you becoming your authentic self. And how do you do that? By not thinking. Don't think about what you say. You know what I'm saying? So I've told you how to end schizophrenia. I've told you how to end disorganized thinking. I've told you how to end hallucinations. I've told you how to end delusions. I've told you how to end anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder. I've told you how to lose weight. I've taught you how to never be obese. I've taught you how to never have a mental illness. I've taught you how never to have cancer in your life. I've taught you how to be healthy. I've taught you how to be rich. I've taught you how to be a specialist. Okay? I've taught you how to be a great mind. Okay? I've taught you how to be your most authentic self. I've taught you how to transcend your ego. All by not thinking. All by never thinking again. Never think again. Okay? Never think about anything ever again. You know what I'm saying? And now, let's say you're on medication. Let's say you're on medication for a mental illness. But you're no longer thinking. You're no longer thinking, but you're on medication. What do you do from here? Well, I can tell you right now, because you're not thinking anymore, you have removed all your suffering. Okay? That medication that you're taking is a little tiny bit compared to thinking. So let's say thinking in your life is more of a disease than that medication that you're taking for your mental illness ever will be. Do you understand me? So whether you're a schizophrenic, a bipolar disorder, or depression, anxiety, and you're taking medications, or maybe you had a heart attack, for example, maybe you had a heart attack, and your medication. Well, when you end your thinking by never thinking again, by never thinking again, you've removed 99.99% of your suffering. And that little tiny 0.0001 or whatever is basically the medication you're on. You understand? As soon as you stop thinking, you've increased your happiness tenfold. You're really now becoming more authentic. You're becoming richer. You're becoming more wiser. You're becoming everything you ever want to be because you're not thinking. Okay? So that's why I suggest for you never to do code zero the way I did. Never do code zero, especially the entity code zero, okay? Which is a thinking ability. Never do it. Never do any of your thinking abilities. Whatever thinking ability you have, you're delusional, okay? Yeah, because a person who has no thinking ability is not delusional. So look at your thoughts today. Okay, don't think about it. Look at your thinking ability. Okay, observe it. What do you believe about your perceived perception of thinking abilities? What makes you feel like a superpower in your mind because of your super thinking or whatever you got in your head? Yeah, because you're just feeding your ego with your superficial nature of thinking. You understand? So you have to realize that the thing is that you probably have a thinking ability. You probably do, okay? And you're wondering about your thinking ability and for someone to validate your thinking ability, correct? Well, what I'll tell you right now, never think again, and you'll never need validation from other people to give you validation about your superpower. You understand? Which is your thinking ability. So end your suffering by ending your thinking abilities. Yeah? All your thinking abilities, throw them in the trash. Throw them in the trash because you no longer need to think again. You understand? The society around you taught you to think for yourself, yeah? Because they fucking lied to you. They lied to you that you have to think for yourself. You don't have to think for anything. You understand? You don't have to think for yourself. You don't have to think for your kids. You don't have to think for anything in your life. You want to end your suffering? You want to become enlightened? You end your suffering by ending your thinking. And you've got that potential inside of you. Okay, I've taught you in this program. Go and read this program again if you didn't get the message. Okay, because I sent it to you in this audio program. Okay, so share it with your friends. Okay, and make sure you understand. Never think again. Never think again about anything in your life. Don't think about your future. Don't think about your dreams. Don't think about your girlfriend. Don't think about your kids. Don't think about your dad or mum. Thinking creates worry. End your worry now. Never think again. Yes, then? Like I said, those people who are thinking right now are not connecting to you. Those people who are not thinking right now are connecting to you. Yes, then? So I'm connecting to you right now by talking to you right now by not thinking. Because if I was thinking, I would not make this audio program for you. You understand? You have to understand that. So if I was thinking, I'd not be talking to you right now. I'd be feeling disconnected in my own thoughts, which is like some kind of superpower, some kind of strategy, some kind of thinking ability, like it's going to make me fucking Super Saiyan, Goku, whatever it is. You understand? And it's all made up theories, and it's all ego. Thinking is derived from ego. So to end the ego, to end your suffering, stop your thinking. Stop thinking. You can stop thinking, okay? That's what you do from now on. And if you can't stop thinking, don't force yourself to think. Don't force yourself to think. Never feel forced by anyone around you in your workplace or anything to think about something. You understand? Don't think about your life. Don't think about anything, okay? That's the best advice I can give you in this video. I hope that you've enjoyed. Please share it with a psychiatrist. Please share it with a psychologist. Coming from someone from age 19 who was diagnosed as a schizophrenic, I developed this superpower, code 0, and I was on medication from 19 to 33. I'm still on medication, but, I can be on medication for life now, but I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to think in my life. I'm not going to think about anything. And my happiness is going to be increased tenfold now. So that little small 50 milligrams of Invega or whatever that I'm on at the moment, guess what? My happiness has increased tenfold because I'm no longer thinking. So the least of my worries is this medication that I'm on. From coming from someone who was diagnosed as a schizophrenic at 19. I no longer do code 0. You can go buy the book and you can go see, for example, how my thinking ability is. You understand? And I can always do it. I can always do the thinking ability, code 0. I can always do code 0 now or whatever, but I'm never going to do it again. Because I never want to think again. I've let go of thinking. I've let go of code 0. I've let go of the sequence of code 0. I never follow the pattern of code 0 anymore. Yeah? I've just let go of it. I let go of writing. I let go of writing altogether because I don't want to think. Because my only way to write is to do code 0. And I don't want to do code 0, so I'm not going to write anymore. I'm just going to make programs. I'm going to make quotes. I'm going to read books. I'm going to read audio programs, and that's my replacement. I'm not going to journal in my phone anymore. I'm not going to laptop write anymore. I'm not going to make books or whatever it is, like stuff like that. I'm not making books anymore. I'm not making audio programs anymore for audible.com. And this kind of thing. The reason for this is because of how the economy is and how the world is with people buying your books. They give no fucks about your books, bro. They give no fucks about your thinking abilities. You understand? So think about this now. You have to realize something. Get yourself to a better place by never thinking again. Never think again about anything in your life. Never think about your past. Never think about your future. Never think about the present moment. All you do is never think. All you do is just be, observe your surroundings, observe everything around you. You understand? And be creative. Yes, be creative. But don't think about it. Don't think to be creative. Don't think to write. Don't think to do anything. Don't think anything about your life. Don't think to do anything. Okay? Don't think you have to do anything. Okay? Don't think about anything. Just be with yourself. Be with yourself. Be where you are. When you're isolated, be there totally. Be with yourself totally. Find ways to connect to people. Find ways to connect to yourself and other people. Always look for ideas. Read books. Read everything. Read whatever you can, okay? But never think about anything. Okay? Never think about your super ability. Okay? Because me talking to you right now in this audio program is me not thinking. I'm not thinking about talking to you. I'm just talking to you. You understand? And when I'm talking to you, I'm not thinking. Okay? You have to understand that. Because if I was thinking, I will not make this audio program for you. You understand? So anyway, guys, have a listen to my program again. Share it with a psychologist, psychiatrist. Share it with medical doctors, professionals. Let them know this information, yeah? Let your family know as well about this information. Share it around. Spread the word, spread this word. Because you're going to be helping someone. Okay, this is coming from personal experience. I never do Code Zero again. That means I no longer write on my laptop. I no longer write in my journal. I write quotes, I write captions, all that kind of stuff, but I no longer think about it. But laptop writing, it's like, I don't do that stuff because that for me is thinking. So you have to realize that I no longer think anymore and I'm happier. Anyway, guys, see you guys later.